I belong to you.
All right. Can everybody see this ugly picture of me here? All right, good. All right, perfect. Well, thank you for joining us. Obviously a very small group, but I'm glad that you all care enough to take a few minutes out to hear what I have to say as it relates to building wealth. All of you know who I am, I think to some degree. Some of you know me better than others, but Chad Helmcamp, BWC Lending. I started BWC Lending a little over 3 years ago. Been in the mortgage business about 20 years, been in the financial services industry 25, 26, something like that. And at the end of the day, I've always been very passionate about finance in general, particularly personal finance. I think some of the hangups I have are from when I was a young kid watching my mom sort of struggle through life to raise 3 kids. I had some conversations with my sisters this weekend as we were talking about, we just don't know how my mom did it, and I think about my mom never had a college education. She worked really, really hard, but up through her final year of working, she never cracked a 6-figure income, but yet she raised 3 kids. All of us went to college, all of us have college degrees, and we've all done fairly well in life. But just watching her struggle really, I think, helped me shape a lot of my feelings and emotions about money in general. And so I'm just going to share some experiences that I've had over time and kind of share some stats with you, and then the tools that I use to help kind of mold the way I manage my money now and the way I have over the last several years. So let's get started. All right. Okay, so first I just want to share some statistics with you. Did you know 62% of Americans retire on less than $10,000 per year in income? It's just a very, very scary thought. I'm sure I can't even begin to imagine what that must be like. 55% of Americans always or sometimes worry about money. 75% of Americans fear they aren't saving enough for retirement. Only a few are willing to do anything about it. 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And when Social Security was first created, the average life expectancy was 62 years of age. Now it is in the 80s. So I get to pre-approve people every day, and I get to see people's finances every day. As a matter of fact, today I had a loan meeting with a 77-year-old woman. Very nice. She has great credit. She has a little bit of cash, but not a lot in the way of savings. And she lives off Social Security and pension with about $3,600 a month in income. And I think we're all really spoiled these days with the type of incomes a lot of us earn. When you hear $3,600 a month, that doesn't leave a whole lot to pay for housing, food, and whatever other expenses you may have. So we get to look at those situations, and my heart goes out to a lot of these folks I get to work with and just do my best to try to help them, put them in the best position to succeed. All right, let's do some math here. And so this just really talks about the importance of the compounding and saving early. The earlier you are, the earlier you start to save, the better off you'll be. The sooner you start, you'll be in good shape. But you can see if you don't start investing till you're 45, you do $100 a month at a 10% rate of return. By the time you turn 65, you'll have $68,000. If you'd started 10 years earlier, that number more than triples to almost 200,000. And then if you started at 25, now you're talking about a size of a sum of money that's really meaningful. And so this is why when I'm always talking with clients and people that we work with, the younger they are, the more I try to encourage them to focus on just do something. I don't care what it is, $25 a month, $100 a month, whatever you can afford, the sooner you can start saving, the better. All right, life is a game not everyone plays. Structure your life for success, plan it, do it. It's proven that the people get rich 3 ways. 10% of people inherit their wealth, 10% invest, and the majority of us accumulate it just by through sheer hard work and discipline and saving month to month. There are 6 main steps to create your wealth, okay? And what we're going to talk through today. And here is the document that I'm going to talk a little bit about today. I actually have 2 presentations. This is one where I tried to really consolidate and concise. I shouldn't say I. Chris did all the heavy lifting. Say hi, Chris. Anything you see marketing-wise or presentation-wise, Chris is responsible. She is fantastic with, what is the software we use now? Canva. Yeah. See, I don't know anything. See, I'm old school. I use PowerPoint. She uses Canva. Whatever that is, it looks really nice. But this is the document, the personal family budget that I use. I use this to track everything that I spend, everything that I earn, and everything that I save. Okay. And just real quick, I'll talk through it. So in the very first column here, we label everything, right? And so at the top, we're going to list our mortgage, our auto loans, student loans, and credit card bills and payments. Then we sort of itemize everything out with electric, gas, the various different things that we pay. Down at the bottom, you'll see where it says spending money. And this is where I try to encourage people to come up with a cash balance, a cash figure that you're comfortable spending every month, whether it be $100 a week, $200 a week, whatever your income allows, and then put it in here as a monthly figure. So if it were $300 to $500 a month, you would put that here. Then at the bottom is where we're going to itemize the accounts where we're saving. Our IRA, our SEP, if we have one, a money market account, a 401k, et cetera. Okay, so this is where we label everything. And then in column 2 is where we're going to list the minimum amounts we put for each of these bills that we pay. Okay, so if your mortgage were $2,000 a month, you'd put that in column 2. If your credit card payment was a $100 minimum payment, you would put that here. Okay. Coming down here to the spending, that's where you would put your $500 a month or whatever your cash is that you spend each month. And then the IRA, money market, and 401k. I always try to encourage people, put the number in here that you want to save every month. Okay. You may not be able to do it every month, but at the very least, put your target goal there for what that's going to be. Then in column 3, that's where you're going to put what you actually pay. So for example, if your mortgage payment was $2,000 a month minimum, and you paid $3,000, and in column 3, you would put $3,000 a month. Okay. And for the credit cards, if your minimum monthly payment was $100, but let's say you pay it off in full every month and the credit card was $1,000, in column 3, you would put $1,000 every month. Okay. And the same thing all the way down this column here. In column 4 is where you list the amount saved. Okay. And so, for example, as I mentioned before, if the mortgage payment was $2,000 a month and you paid $3,000, in column 4, you would put that you technically saved $1,000 a month. We always put this here just to make us realize that we're paying into that principal, and that technically is going into your pocket in some way, shape, or form. And so we would put that amount saved here. There's not usually a whole lot listed in column 4 unless you are prepaying like an auto loan or a house loan or something like that. But then if you come down to the bottom here where the IRAs and 401ks are, that's where you're going to put how much money you save each month. Okay. And then the very last column you have is the total paychecks. Okay. So this is just where you itemize all your income, whatever income you may receive. If you have got a commission check, if you have a rental property, you would put the rent income that you listed here. If you have dividend income, anything like that would go in here. Again, there's not a whole lot listed in this column, but everything will total at the bottom. And again, this is an Excel spreadsheet. I'll be able to send this to you and then you can play with it. We'll pull one up in a second and just kind of type in some figures so you can see how the document works. But I use this. It's been great for me. I've been using it since 2015, actually, so almost 7 years now. And I'm not as diligent as I used to be in tracking every single little thing. But really what I'm focused on is these things here at the bottom, because as you fill in this document, these forms here, these balances will fill in at the bottom, and it gives you an idea of your total overall net worth. So let's talk through some more details. Oh, question?
Catherine asked Chad, what about business expenditures?
Business expenditures. So great question. So this document is not intended to track business expenses. Okay. Now, on my personal family budget, I do have my business credit card here because it is a bill that I do have to pay. But generally, I usually recommend agents to create a profit and loss statement and use that to track your business expenses. Okay. So this would really just be for personal. And that's the thing, is you typically do want to try to keep everything separate. So just like you have your personal checking and savings account, you would have a business checking account. Okay. Maybe not a business savings necessarily, but you certainly have a business checking account. Some people do have business savings as well. And then you want to have a credit card specifically for business. And I can show you the P&L statements that we use as well. Again, I use QuickBooks now. I used to use a P&L spreadsheet that's relatively easy. So it's kind of up to you and what you're most comfortable with. But generally, this document would just be for personal expenses. Good question, though. All right. So track every dollar in and out. And as I talked about it, that's what this document is for. Okay. So over here, we call it the day of reckoning, which basically, did we misspell that? I think there's supposed to be a K in there. Reckoning. Just kidding. Anyway, but you want to pay your bills once a month. And I usually suggest on the first day of the month. To me, that's the easiest thing to do. What a lot of people don't know is sometimes you can change your due dates on your credit cards to when they're actually due. I did that on every credit card that I could. I want to say there was one or two that didn't allow me to do that, but most credit cards will allow you to change your due dates. But I want to pay all my bills on the first, and those other two that I have to remember to pay those when they're actually due. But most everything I pay on the first of the month. It's easier to allocate and count everything. You know, and a lot of what I share with you today is the way I was taught. And like I say, it's a general rule. I may not follow every rule to the letter, much like Dave Ramsey. Like I love Dave Ramsey and a lot of things that Dave Ramsey talks about, but it's pretty hardcore. And so I try to take the nuggets from that I can and implement everything that I can, and loosely from there. But the coach that taught me this said you should have one bank with 3 accounts: a checking account, a savings account, and then a money market / float account. The money market / float account is where you want to have we call that your survival number, right? So basically you want to have at least 3 months worth of monthly living expenses saved up in that account. Your savings account is where we ideally say that all of your income should be deposited to. So your commission checks and everything should go into that account. And then on the first of every month, when you go to pay your bills, you should transfer the amount necessary from savings into your checking in order to pay your bills. Our coach suggested keeping your checking account at close to a zero balance. That always made me nervous, so I don't ever keep my checking account at a zero balance, but that's what he suggested. Okay. All right. So personal family budget. As I mentioned before, as I was trying to describe things, maybe this will help it a little bit better. This kind of shows a credit card that you have a $10,000 balance on. So in column 1, you put in parentheses how much your balance on your credit card is. Column 2, you show your minimum amount owed. Column 3 shows how much you actually paid. And so you paid $150. So in conceptually here, you've saved about $100 in this instance. So anytime we see paying down a principal of a debt, we see that as savings. Obviously, you want to start with your credit card debt. When you go to paying off debt, you always want to start with your credit card debt, primarily because the average credit card interest as of 2022 was 18.32%. Hopefully, if you've got really strong credit, you don't have any credit cards where you're paying that kind of interest. But you know, I see it all the time, and it's shocking to me how many people will carry balances on credit cards where they're paying that kind of interest. Step 3, once you've paid off all of your revolving debt, then it comes to start to accumulate an emergency savings account. An emergency fund, also known as a contingency fund, is a personal budget set aside as a financial safety net for future mishaps or unexpected expenses. And so we call that your survival number. If your survival number was $3,000 a month, that means your emergency fund would be roughly $9,000. And so you want to try to have at least that much. Now, they say your minimum is 3 months. I want to say Dave Ramsey says it's closer to 6 months. I like Dave Ramsey's idea just because I'm more conservative. So the more you have in that emergency fund, the better, just because it allows for a little bit better night's sleep. And these are all of the types of things that you factor into your emergency fund: housing, food, healthcare, utilities, transportation, personal expenses. Okay. And your minimum monthly debts, of course. All right. Then we want to get to saving for retirement, maximizing your retirement. There are lots of different retirement vehicles. And so obviously I'm not a financial advisor. Some of you, Catherine, you certainly know we've got a mutual friend who's a very great financial advisor. I have multiple financial advisors I work with. So if you need a referral in that capacity, just let me know and I'm happy to make a connection. But there are lots of different vehicles for saving for retirement. Roth IRA is one, 401k is one if you work for a company. I think all of you are real estate agents, so you won't likely be looking at a 401k unless you created a self-employed 401k or something like that. Then you have the SEP IRA, which seems to be probably one of the most common that most real estate agents I work with utilize. Can any of you share what type of investment vehicles you use on a retirement basis right now? You can either put it in the chat or unmute.
SEP IRA.
SEP? Excellent. Catherine SEP, okay, perfect. Yeah, it by far and away allows for the greatest deferral and deduction. So I don't know what it's up to now, but I want to say it's like over 50. It's like over 50,000. I think you can put up to over 50,000 in it on an annual basis. So that's a really big deal. Minimizing your tax liability, a great way to save. Okay. All right. So invest in the stock market. Again, some of this is coming from the coach that we talked about, and he had his ideas. As you're saving and when you're in the accumulation phase, he recommends just growth mutual funds. Again, we've got great financial planners we can connect you with if that's something you want to look into further. He says up to $250,000 investing in growth mutual funds. Once you get beyond that, he says you kind of graduate into an index fund arena. I actually still invest in growth funds as well. And then lastly, buying individual stocks. Personally, I don't have time to pick stocks. It's funny, I have friends anytime when the stock market crashed during COVID, all my buddies were like, oh, we need to buy this, we need to buy that. And I was like, I don't have time to do it. So I don't really mess with it just because I don't have time to go out and pick individual stocks. I'd rather focus on growing my business and helping our buyers buy new homes. But if you've got the time, great. If not, I say find a financial advisor that works in that arena. Every financial advisor is different. So some financial advisors will focus only on mutual funds, index funds, and manage money that way. But then you'll find other financial advisors that do like to pick individual stocks and things like that. So find what works for you. All right, step 6, prepay your mortgage. This is, for me, definitely the last step. And for anybody who's bought a house over the last several years and locked in rates in the 2s and 3s and even 4s, I don't see that there's a real great incentive to pay down the mortgage aggressively. However, everybody's situation is different, and you've just got to look at it individually. But on the right here, you'll see if you pay 1/12 of your mortgage payment every month, that would shave off about 8 years off of your mortgage, saving you somewhere in the neighborhood of about $115,000 interest over the life of the loan. So it's certainly another way to save interest over the life of the loan. But here you'll notice, and this is really what I try to point out to a lot of the buyers that reach out to us, is why paying cash for a house doesn't always make sense. But $200,000 value home with $160,000 mortgage at 5% appreciation, $40,000 invested in the home. Basically, you've got about a 5 times better investment there, 25% return on investment. $40,000 down, and that $2,000 asset's going to grow over time by at least $10,000 on an annualized basis. So it makes a lot more sense to leverage the purchase of a home when you're doing that. Whereas on $200,000 free and clear mortgage, that means you have $200,000 equity in your home. You're only getting a 5% rate of return there. So, for me, it's a little tough. Big believer in financing when you can. Now rates are starting to rise, so that math may change some. So we'll just have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. All right, biggest mistakes that sabotage your long-term wealth. We all slip up when it comes to handling money. There's no doubt about it. But carrying debt's the biggest thing, and I get to see it far too often. Unfortunately, I worked with another couple this week. They're in their early 60s. The wife was diagnosed with cancer, and they've had a real struggle over the last several years. I would say the one saving grace for them is they've lived in their home for about 15 years. They've got a lot of equity in their home, so they're going to sell it, and it's going to sort of help them get to a reset situation. But they've had a lot of debt. They've had a lot of late payments. they had forbearance on their mortgage, things like that. So it's really hurt their credit. But hopefully once they sell their home, they can kind of wipe out a lot of that debt, get them to a better breathing phase. Of course, investing in the market, the stock market to me is still the best way long-term and in real estate. Again, being able to buy real estate that over the last couple of years appreciating at unbelievable rates. What do we think? Do we think these appreciation rates are going to hold up? Unsure, don't know yet. I think they're definitely going to slow down a little bit, which would be good. I think they need to slow down a little bit, but 15% a year is probably not sustainable. And then, of course, poor retirement planning. I know, Catherine, I've been through a retirement plan. My first retirement plan was when I was 40, and it was pretty overwhelming and pretty discouraging at the time. But what's the old saying? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But it's amazing how just having that first meeting and being a little overwhelmed and feeling like I was off track, just talking about it, creating that plan, and then just in 2 or 3 years, things change dramatically. You start focusing on it, and now I'm ahead of schedule. So I went from being behind schedule to now being ahead of schedule. It's very freeing to go through that process. So I would highly encourage you to do it. All right. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. So short and sweet, to the point. I'm going to pull up my other spreadsheet here, just so we can talk through this budget a little more, and so you can kind of see what it looks like, and really so y'all can see how I would normally do this. Can y'all see that still? Can you see the budget? Okay, perfect. All right, so what I would typically do is I would come over here and I'd say I have a $400,000 mortgage. I owe $2,500 a month. Like I said, I'm not big on prepaying my mortgage because I see mortgage as good debt. So I would typically do it just like that. I fortunately paid off my car last year, so I don't have one, but I would let's just say we had a $500 car payment. And let's say I pay $1,000 a month. That would look like that. Down here, we would say, let's say we had a $10,000 credit card with a $250 payment. And we say let's say we pay it off every month. God, that's a lot. Let's not do that. There we go. We'll do it that way. Okay, and then no rents. Okay, so this would all come over here. So if you had a rental property, you would have, let's just say you had a $2,000 income, dividends $100 a month. Refunds, that's typically like IRS refunds, things like that. And then we'll just do this. We'll make this easy. Okay, so we'll just do $100 for everything. I know daycare is not $100. I don't have a child. Wes, how much is daycare? Way too much?
You don't want to know, man.
We'll say $1,000.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to school.
I bet. Insurance could be a number of different things. Down here, you'll see giving. And one of the things we were coached to really start tracking is how much we give each month, what charitable donations and things like that. That's been a really fun thing to track and really interesting. So we certainly encourage tracking that as well. Let's put 200 for now. Spending, we'll put 500. Okay. And then IRA, let's just say we want to do $500 a month. Let's hope to put 200 in our money market every month. Let's leave it like that. Okay. All right. So then on the income side, let's say we had a really good month, made $20,000 commission. All right. Okay, perfect. So the way this is going to look, so again, this is our survival number. So what we're saying is, in this case, if our survival number was 6,450, we would take that times 3. So that means our survival number would be $19,350. Okay, so that's what you'd want to save, roughly $20,000 in your money market to get to that point. Okay, what we actually pay. So I don't know about you, but a lot of my monthly expenses are included in my credit card payment. So more often than not, I don't come down and put down here, I paid 100, I paid 100. I don't do that. It just will all roll up into my actual credit card payment here at the top. So let's just assume right now we're showing that we've got minimum payments of $64.50. Here we have $8,500. I'm going to try to keep this simple. But what I want to point out here, and this is sort of the key, is that the way we were trained is that how much we write in checks should equal our income for the month. So for example, if I made $22,000, but I only wrote $8,500, I've got a fairly big delta there of about $13,600. Well, in reality, the way we see that is, that means that I've got extra money that I saved. So in reality, what we would do is we would come over here and we would say, I wrote a check for $13,600 to my money market account, which means I saved $13,600. And then now all of a sudden we equal $22,100. Okay. So we made a total of $22,100. We saved $500 on the auto because we prepaid it by $500, and we put $13,600 in the money market. And you could do this a couple of different ways. I realize I forgot my IRA SEP, so we put that there. There we go. So in this case, we wrote checks for say $14,100, and we got that much there in our SEP, in our money market. Does that make sense at all? Okay. I know that this is a little confusing. I tell you, I've did this a long time. It took me a while to get used to it and to get comfortable with it. But that's how I would fill that in. And so then down here at the bottom, you'll see it has your money market float account set at $19,300. Currently, I've got $14,100 saved. Okay. And so what I started doing is, and not everything feeds here. So if I did end up giving money, I forgot to give money that month. I clearly have plenty to give. So we're going to do, there we go. So now we've given $200 year to date. And then all these other things, you manually type these in based on whatever assets you have. Oh, Paul Perez is joining a little late. All right. And so over here on my spreadsheet, on my personal spreadsheet over here on the right is where I go and I list all of my accounts. So I'll put my Wells Fargo checking, et cetera. And so then that helps me tally up all the figures that I need to put in these different boxes over here. Paul, welcome. Sorry, you're a little late. So I've covered a lot of material so far, so you might be a little lost, but happy to connect with you later. All right, and so over here is where you would list everything that you have. So let's just say you had 100,000 in your 401k, 100,000 in mutual funds, 50,000 in stocks. If you've got a home and you've got equity in your home, this is where you would list it. Equity in my home, I don't know what I've got. Harvey didn't help me any. And so there you go. And so then this would give you your overall total net worth. Okay. So just to give you kind of an idea, this is what the budget looks like. You'll see here at the bottom, it's got every month. Okay. And so you can kind of work your way through the course of the year and fill it in, and everything calculates for you. I'm sort of an Excel geek, so I'm really good at playing with Excel. And so I created another page that would sort of summarize everything over the course of the year into one page. But like I said, you got to crawl before you walk. If you've never done a budget before, my suggestion is to keep it simple, keep it as basic as you can, and then over time you can make it as detailed and as thorough as you would like. Questions, concerns, anything I went over that was overly confusing?
Chad, I do have a question for you. You had mentioned the portion of, I guess, paying off debts. And then right here, what would your thoughts and or advice be regarding student loans? Like I personally have student loans, and it seems like it's a little bit of a hot topic right now because they keep pushing it. What are you guys telling people?
I think it's a great question, and it's really a case by case basis. I think, I think the hot topic is are they going to start forgiving student loan debt? Is that what you're referencing?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, that certainly would have me hesitant to pay it off. I mean,
Why would I?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be hesitant to pay it off if there's a chance that could occur. I'm not sure how long I would wait. Certainly if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the next probably 2.5 years.
Yep.
And then we'll see what happens during the next election cycle. I would say if it doesn't happen in the next 2.5 years and you still have it, if the interest rate is 5, 6 or whatever percent, then I'd concentrate on getting it paid off.
Yeah.
If it's low, and I don't even know what, I mean, I hear student loan rates in the 6s, and then I hear student loans in the 2s. Any idea what your rates are? Are they in the 6s or?
I think they're in the 5s.
5s, okay.
It's like 7 or 8 different ones, like 7 or 8 different mini loans.
Right. Yeah. No, I see student loans all the time, so I know how they break them all up, and so I'd probably be in the idea of potentially waiting to see what happens.
Yeah.
But to me, I don't think they're going to just forgive them for everybody. To me, it seems like they're really targeted to forgive them based on certain income levels and certain things like that. For you, I would say the chances of your student loans being forgiven being a little bit lower, but that's hard to say.
Yeah, it's interesting, focusing on the things to pay off and like looking at the student loans, and then as they keep pushing them, right, they're not accruing any further interest.
Then that definitely tells you not to.
Yeah.
That would definitely say I wouldn't be paying it off until some sort of clarity comes to how they're going to handle those.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, but not my strong suit. So I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great question. Catherine, absolutely. I will share this with you. I'll email this spreadsheet to all of you so that you have it, and the presentation we just talked through. And like I said, I've been working on this for years. And so if you got questions or you're curious about how to do something or track something, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help. And I had another I have another document that I'll probably share with you guys as well that goes into a little more detail on some of the filling this out. And it was created by the coaches that taught me how to work on this document. So it'll have little snippets and screenshots of all of their budgets, and to give you kind of an idea of how to fill it out. Great. Oh, I want to talk about rates. Let's talk about rates. Okay, here we go. Okay, well, since we're going to talk about rates, let's talk about this. Okay, so this is the service I use to track mortgage rates. And what you're looking at here is a chart that starts in January and goes through today. And what you're looking at is the price of the 4% coupon 30-year fixed mortgage-backed security. And what this chart shows is it shows the price of the mortgage-backed security going down. And as the price goes down, the rate goes up. This is my 20th year in the business, I believe. Yeah, I'm going on my 20th year in the business. And this is the fastest I've ever seen rates climb. Okay. And so what I like to do is show this chart on longer periods of time. So this is the last quarter. There's 6 months. Here's 1 year. And here's 2 year. So when you go out further, you really get to see that basically starting in November of last year is when rates started to climb, but it was a relatively slow movement up until January. And then in January of this year, it really got out of hand real fast. So we've seen at the end of January, we were quoting rates in the high 2s and low 3s. And right now we're quoting rates in the high 4s and low 5s. So for a 30-year fixed loan, that is a huge difference. And so since you asked that question, let me do this. I'm going to show, let me show you all what that looks like from a, actually, oh, you know what, Chris, we've got that cost of waiting presentation, don't we? Let's do that one. I had a client that reached out to me yesterday who bought in March of last year, and he got the lowest 30-year fixed rate that we locked all in the ever. And so he was at 2.5% on a 30-year fixed rate. His loan amount was about $400,000. I told him that if he were buying that house today, his mortgage payment would be $612 a month more. Yeah, not ideal. All right, here we go. All right, this was my cost of waiting presentation. We shared this with folks last year to try to encourage them to move sooner than later. And this shows mortgage rates over time. And so you can see that when we created this presentation last year, the rate was 3.5%. So it's already gone up quite a bit since we did this presentation last year. Let's see here. Okay, and we showed rates going from 3.5 to 4.5. And so here that on a $450,000 home. Oh, and we talked about the home price appreciating as well, going from 450 to 522. And so the rate would go from 3.5 to 4.5. Their payment would go up $575 a month. Okay, and so realistically today, let's see here, 522, 20% down, 417, 600. Where's that at? No, 10 per, huh? 10 per, oh, 10% down. Okay, that's what you got. 469. Yeah, 2521 a month compared to 1903 a month. It's just such a big difference, right? $600 a month in such a short period of time. And I can send this to you as well if this helps at all, but we'll probably update this now with today's rates just to kind of show what things look like. I'm not sure what, and this is where I talk about home prices appreciating, what's going to happen from here. But there's no doubt that affordability has really been impacted in a big, big way. So right now, where are they going, right? I think that's the $1 million question. Where are rates going to go? I wish I knew. Unfortunately, I don't. I can't predict the future. But the good news is the last 3 days have shown some signs that maybe the worst is behind us. Inflation numbers came out yesterday at the highest they've been since 1981, 8.5% year-over-year inflation, which is, incredible. But at least yesterday we had a good day in the mortgage bond market. Today we had a good day in the mortgage bond market. And if you just look over the last 3 months, we haven't had a lot of good days. Had a lot more bad than good. I just don't think they don't usually go up in a straight line. So hopefully maybe we've hit a point where they'll start to level out. I think people would be much more comfortable buying homes if their rate started with a 4 instead of a 5. So hopefully they'll settle down and we'll be maybe in the high 4s. Mid to high 4s, I think would be ideal. At the beginning of this year, they had predicted that rates would go to 4% by the end of the year. And then they updated their forecast to 4.5 by Q2, which we're already way past. So hopefully now that maybe they'll be right and we look up at the end of the year and rates end up close to that 4.5% range. And I think people will calm down just a little bit.
Chad, quick question, if you don't mind also.
Yeah.
I think you kind of just like touched on it earlier. it's interesting to see the rate changes, obviously. How do you see that affecting the soaring prices?
Well, I mean, it's going to have an impact. I mean, I think the thing is, when you have a multiple offer situation, I think it really depends on the price point, of course, but it's going to slow it down. I mean, it has to, because whereas you might have had 20 buyers at 3%, right? Maybe you have 10 now, right? Because some people aren't going to be able to afford the home at these higher interest rate levels. I had a client who bought a second home last year in Galveston. I did the math for him. His payment would have been like $1,000. It was $1 million second Galveston beach house, but his payment would have been $1,000 more today than it was 6 months ago. And, some people cannot afford that kind of an increase in a monthly outflow. And so I think that's what you have to look at each of those situations on a case by case basis. So I think, Catherine, the thing that you had shared showed I think the guy, one of the people at Compass had shared showing that oh, you got to go, hop off, go ahead. Catherine had shared something, one of her people at her company had shared something showing that all of a sudden we're seeing that inventory tick up, right? Inventory is ticking up just a little bit. It's not enough to move the needle yet, but if that happens week after week, eventually you're going to start to see that inventory, the supply and demand thing come into balance. And once that does, then the people offering, 10 to 20% over the list price, that'll start to subside and will start to be a more normalized market. But I see that being more of like a 3 to 6 month time horizon. So most people are saying that by the end of this year, we could be in a much more normalized market, which will be good for buyers. And it'll be good for, maybe not as good for sellers, but it'll certainly be easier on you guys as you're helping your buyers and sellers navigate it. Because it's just as hard to help a buyer get an offer accepted as it is to help the seller choose between 20 offers, right?
A lot of time.
Tough. It's challenging.
Yeah. Do you see or
Bye, Catherine.
really track or put into it like the price of commodities at all, how those are influencing and impacting, like new builds?
Well, and that's the other thing too, is, lumber prices are down 30% already.
Yeah.
And I read something else this morning talking about some of the other supply chain supplies that are go to build homes are down 20-30% in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And so, that's a really quick correction. How long will it take to filter down to the end consumer will be the question, right? But that's been one of the bigger concerns. That low income family that wants to buy a house is really, really squeezed now that rates have gone to 5%.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what a lot of people don't understand is what hurts that low end consumer more is that home price going from 250 to 300. A home price going from 250 to 300 is much more impactful to that low end consumer than the rate going from 3 to 5. Well, when you've got the two together, the 250 to 300 and the 5%, that's a really bad scenario. A good friend of mine works in the CRA department at a bank here in Houston. CRA is the Community Reinvestment Act, meaning they all work with the low income families. And he said just like that, he's had multiple buyers no longer qualify. And that's a frustrating situation, obviously, for them, of course, and for him. And I just told him, I said, look, it's going to take a little time, but I think these prices are going to come down some, and certainly in that lower end spectrum. One of the things I've been focused on or I'm watching closely is I'm a big believer that the Airbnb model and market has really caused a big part of our housing problem, because I know a lot of millennial clients are calling and they don't want to buy houses to live in them. They want to buy them out as an income stream so they don't have to work. And because they're hearing all these people making tens of thousands of dollars a month on Airbnb houses. And I think that model and they're buying houses in just regular residential neighborhoods. So I'm not sure how long it's going to take for that to come to the surface, but I think Fannie and Freddie have already sort of had their eye on it. And that's why investment property rates and second home rates are really unattractive right now. If you're going to buy an investment property or second home, your interest rate is going to be substantially higher than it used to be.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Appreciate that, Chad. Thanks.
absolutely. Well, guys, that's all I had for today. Paul, I know you joined late. You missed a good chunk of what I talked about. You got any questions or concerns or anything I can do for you?
No, not this time. Sorry, I was tied up with something, so I got in a little late, but I wanted to catch some of it. So thanks a lot.
That's all right. No worries. We've got we'll have a recording on it, so we'll send that out as well. So if you want to catch that first part, catch it anytime.
All right, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Paul. Take care. Wes, it was good to see you. Thanks for taking the time to join us, and congratulations again.
Of course. Thanks, Chad. I was looking forward to it. I appreciate the info.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
I belong to you. I belong to you.